Also, I'm not really sure. I've just been baffled the whole time about this money issue as far as spending money on the death penalty. It really seems to me like we should want to spend money to make sure that the people we're either putting in jail or executing are indeed guilty. As for the first part, I'm not really. I mean, I lose track. I mean, I feel like a Supreme Court justice up here being questioned by things. Questions are like narratives.
Point of order: the Supreme Court justices ask the questions, not the other way around.
I was talking about the confirmation hearings. You mentioned this author from the 1970s who followed the lives of these people who were on death row and who were released. I found it, just as I was listening to your question, I found it very ironic. I mean, the first thing I thought was who would follow the lives of the victims of those people killed. And I suppose that's just really it's not possible. And I think that's very unfortunate. Because I mean, that's really what society is deprived of. I'm not really sure if being deprived of 12 murders or how many murders you said it was would be as much of a detriment as not having those people back. I mean, I guess that's my answer.
I'd also like to point out that we do not necessarily advocate further use of the death penalty, extrapolating the use. We don't necessarily advocate, spending ridiculous sums of money. We're simply saying that it should be constitutional and it should be up to a jury of the prosecuted peers, rather than to the U.S. government what the punishment should be.
Okay, and now Young Conservatives in Texas will have the opportunity to pose a similar question to campaign to end the death penalty.
Okay, so we're asking questions out here. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so tonight you guys, and just once again before I guess this is the last time you get to speak, so just once again I'd like to thank you guys for participating in the debate, everyone here for coming, and to remind you all that as far as our position goes, we're the negative, so if you agree with us, then walk out the nay door, which I believe is up there. And the resolution, I believe, is that we should abolish the death penalty, a moratorium, what have you. In order to agree with that position, you have to be persuaded, I believe. I mean, I'm not really sure about the rules, but persuaded, like, in the affirmative that they're right, they have the burden of proof. All right, so anyway, the question. All right, you guys, the members of the campaign to end the death penalty, presented a lot of. My question is, in your minds, what would be the ideal racial composition of victims, convicts, and jurors, and how would you propose the government go about accomplishing such idealized racial breakdowns?
I will also note that you can gladly walk out that door if you are signing the affirmative in favor of abolishing capital punishments. So the question, as I understood it, is what ideal racial composition on death row would I like to see? Which is a strange question, seeing as I am arguing from an anti-death penalty position that I would be asked to conceptualize a death penalty composition that would be ideal.
Yeah, but to clarify that it wasn't on the death penalty, it was convicts in general.
Okay, convicts in general and such. Wow. I'm just going to frame it this way, because I mean, this question is, I think, by its very nature, designed to be impossible to grasp one's hands around. It seems one of those kind of designed specifically to not have an answer, if you all know what I mean. Ultimately, well, as we've been arguing throughout this debate, is that you simply cannot separate the issue of capital punishment from these racial variables, from these class variables, so on and so forth. Now, if we did find ourselves in a society where racism was miraculously vanished, where class disparities ceased to exist, where attorneys were excellent, the conversation we'd be having today would be an entirely different conversation. That we cannot separate this conversation from those variables, which is the point we've been driving home all night, that our opposition has chosen to ignore in favor of broader, non-contextual arguments. And I realize I am not answering this question, and as I've already stated, it is by design an impossible question to answer. I'm not going to condescend to describe the number breakdown of which races I would like to see executed. Because by extension, I can also argue which genders I would rather see executed, which classes I would rather see executed, and those defeat the entire point, which I think is what has come out of this debate more than anything, missing the point.